Hi, this is Jim Haviland. So we've just covered the concepts that are important parts of accountability, responsibility, mapping the org. Now we really want to get into the roles and responsibilities part. This is quite often done later on when you're implementing from the start. People tend to like to talk about the structure first, but I think understanding this pretty deeply is actually more important when you're starting the organization. And I want to start here and to make sure you understand this completely and something you can start working on right now, even before you get to anything that has to do with structure. Just make sure you're really clear with yourself about what your role looks like, the roles of the people that report to you look like, and make sure they're really clear with everybody. So once again, we're back at this picture. This is the right people, right seat picture. This is the idea of there are many seats on the bus in the organization, and we have to be pretty good at figuring out how those structure. Each of those seats has a set of roles and responsibilities in them. 3, 5, 7. You don't want to have too many. People ask, hey, how do I know the difference between listing everything I do versus the things that are most important? When do I know I'm done? And you don't really. I mean, this is a trial and error process. This is a recursive process where we're going to start by trying to make sure we've captured the most important things. I want you to be really clear on what things you have to work on today and this week and this month and this quarter. Really clear on what are the things that are really at the top of the list and what things can fall away. And quite often by trying to get to this list and then applying these things to time on your calendar is part of what we get to be really super clear about, there's no way I'm getting all this done. What are the things I'm going to get done? What are the things I'm going to put off or delegate or automate or something like that? So when we're defining a seat, what we find is it's really great to have outcome-focused roles and responsibilities. Not I own sales, but I own achieving our revenue targets, or I own finding enough customers to get to our revenue targets. Those would both be different ways of talking about sales, but would be much more, now I know what to go to. I own sales. And what does that really mean? Have clear descriptions and have measurables that define success. So here's my role and in my org, which I'm a coach and trainer. That's what I do. And here's a handful of things. You can see here I've got 6 roles and responsibilities. But these are the 6 most important things that I have to be working on a regular basis. Like I'm making advances on these things on a regular basis as part of standard work. We talked about the concept of standard work. Every week, or at least every other week, I've got some things I go do to make sure these things are true, that I'm accomplishing the things that are listed here. You can see they mostly talk about what I'm supposed to deliver, the outcomes I'm trying to get to. Then inside, and this is like we're looking at the tool 90, this is how 90 lays it out, and this is really a very effective tool for all of this. I have my description of those bullet points, but I also get to put in as long as I want, text descriptions of what does it mean to be really successful at this thing. So lead, manage, and hold accountable. That's one way of talking about the leadership role. So if I got people reporting to me, I need to have that as part of what I'm doing. We talked about this in our concepts. Leadership and mentoring take time. So if I want someone to know that that's something I have to spend time on, that they have to actually put some effort into that, I need to put it right there in their roles and responsibilities. And by the way, we make it the first thing. We always make it the first thing because more than likely you got your job because you're a subject matter expert in a handful of things. And when we think about, I got a job as a marketer, or I got a job as a researcher, and you think about, that means the most important thing is the things I do. But when you have people reporting to you, it's far more important that or this is something we have to get agreement on. Quite often, it's more important that you are, and I need to be reminded of this, that I'm creating time and effort to make sure the people that are reporting to me are being successful. Because ultimately, that's where you're going to get to. At some point, we cap out at about 7 people. Much more than that, you don't have much time to spend with everybody. But as you become a leader of a larger and larger organization, more and more of your time goes to coordinating the efforts of others and less into doing the stuff yourself. And that's the right and best way for making it happen, because you're not going to be interested in picking up the garbage and making the phone calls. When you get to be a big executive in a big organization, you are the one who says, okay, when do we do this and when do we do that? When do we know that is done? And have it all coordinated up into something we're adding up to something. That is where we're trying to get to. That is the point. So we have to do everything we can to make sure people below us are accomplishing things. But you can see everything else here. Client goal achievement. What does that really mean? You can see a handful of things we're looking at as potential measures for how we would say our clients are being successful. And why is that important? We discuss that because we want them to make introductions to other people. We want to give them all the evidence they need to show that we're doing a good job for them so that they can make introductions, because referrals are how my business grows. So that's an important part of it. So being really crystal clear about that for anyone that comes on, if they're taking on that client goal achievement role, they know why they're doing it and they're knowing what that means and what delivery of that actually means from a measurable perspective. And so each of those key performance indicators that are part of that, those are the KPIs, key performance indicators. That's the best way for me to be super clear as someone that's designing a seat for somebody to know what success in that seat really means. And I have to have some awareness of what they're supposed to be doing to know what success looks like. And sometimes it's not the case where I don't really understand the complete details of what they do, and that's a natural part of what happens when you're leading people. But I need to negotiate with them. And early on in the hierarchy of needs model, that stage of growth model, in those first couple stages, quite often we are negotiating these things, because quite often the people that we're working with know more about it than we do, and we have to give their professional opinion space inside of designing this. And that becomes maybe less of an issue as you get to larger and larger organizations where you're going to do more prescriptive management in your area, especially if you become a specialist in that area, you know exactly what you want people to deliver it. You always want to leave the opening people to get pushback, or to make other suggestions. But early on, it's much more of a negotiation. All right. So a couple of things. Quite often people say, "Hey, I don't know how to measure that." Especially, it's an artistic thing, or it's a subjective thing. It doesn't matter. There's always a way of figuring out a way of measuring things. So here's 4 things that we pick from that are ways of measuring KPIs that measuring success in something. That, hey, this is something you're in charge of accomplishing. The first one is quantity. This is the easiest one, the most common one. I need to make 14 blueberry pies every week, or I need to make 5,000 blueberry pies. Those are very different outcomes that you're giving me. So I will think about how do I execute that work very differently. So if that's what the most important thing, then I have to deliver a certain quantity of output every week. And then there's quality and compliance. So quality, is there a way of measuring quality, a criteria for that? And as you become a much more mature organization, you'll have better and better ways of determining quality. What does quality mean to you? And if I'm making those blueberry pies, maybe it has to weigh a certain amount, because if I don't put enough blueberries, enough sugar in it, it's not going to weigh enough. That might be a determiner of quality. Or maybe it's got to pass these taste tests, and that's a measure of quality. So 1 out of every of those pies needs to get tasted by somebody to make sure it tastes really super awesome, or the filling gets tasted alone. I don't know, whatever it is. You will, over time, especially if quality becomes an issue, find ways of measuring quality for yourself, or proxies for quality, and make that part of the definition. Hey, I need you to make 5,000 pies a week that are at B+ quality every week, or better. The floor is B+. It can't be below B+. It's like, oh, I can make 5,000 pies, but it's be a really crappy job at it. Nope, you got to be B+ quality on all of them, and they got to be 5,000 of them. And compliance. This is where we bring in that third part of standard work, and we should always get to this, where we're saying, hey, there's a right best way to do this thing, and we're going to outline it and document it for everyone to follow, and we need you to comply with that process. And there's a couple of reasons for this, but 2 important ones. 1, because that's the right best way to do things. And 2, if you start varying from that for some really good reason, then I need to update the process, because you're documenting the process for what happens when you get abducted by aliens or win the lottery, not because I'm just trying to give you one more thing to go do. So take all of that wisdom you're gaining at doing this thing on a regular basis and put it back into the process that everyone's going to follow after you win that lottery and have gone away and we can't reach you anymore. quantity, quality, compliance, and the last one, we call this the attendance measure. Are there things that have to get done and I can just check the box? Yes, we did that. We validated this. We were approved in this. And did we pass our health inspection? And you have to make sure we pass our health inspection. We're always compliant with health inspection every quarter. So if that's your part of the blueberry pie making, is making sure the kitchen passes inspection, then that would be a yes or no. If we're not compliant with that, then it's a no. But all of these are things that you can apply to anything that you're trying to get done, and there are so many more. So especially if you're marketing or something like that, where there's infinite number of measures, there's lots of ways of measuring this, but you always have at least these available to you. So leadership, coaching, and mentoring. We talked about this. This takes time, and we have to put that into your role. If you have someone reporting to you, I need to be very explicit about what that means. And this is one of the things that we get wrong quite often. Hey, you were such a great blueberry pie maker. I'm going to make you the Archduke of blueberry pies. Congratulations, you now have 50 blueberry pie makers reporting to you. Well, what does that mean? I now have people reporting to me. What does it look like to do a good job at that? And I have to be very clear about that. So we really want to create guidance for people on what the expectation is around being good at leadership and mentoring. And we do have this. Once again, this is a screenshot from Within 90, where in the feedback tool, we are very explicit about what it means to be a great leader, what it means to be a great coach or mentor. And you get to create those things on your own too, if you want, as an organization. This is what we think are the standards for being a great leader, coach, mentor, or manager. And you have to do that. You have to get to the place where you're being very explicit about this. And we start with these standards early on. The first couple of stages, there's no way you really know, so you might as well start with a standard that's already been written. And then over time, you'll get to more and more bespoke notions of what it means to you, customized notions of what it means to you. By the time you get to the top of the pyramid and you are a fully realized organization in steward mode, you have your own definition of what it is to be a great leader inside the organization, how meetings are run and how you give feedback to people, and what are the rules for engagement for one-on-one meetings to make sure people are moving along. Maybe you start to get measured by how much advancement the people reporting to you have over a period of years. That would be an appropriate thing to measure, because that's really your job, is to help them advance, be a leader, building leaders. All right, so those are some basics around just defining your roles and responsibilities within a seat. So with that in mind, my suggestion always is to go do this for your seat. Be ready to have that conversation with whoever you report to. How would you measure success in your seat? If you were giving someone your job, what would you tell them? And is that enough for someone that's not you to understand what's really going on there, so they would know what to go do? You want to define your seat that way, because eventually that is what you're going to do. You're going to hire someone for your job as you continue to rise up the organization, or to take on other organizations, or win the lottery. So next part, we'll talk about people and putting them in the right seats.